In this conversation, I am chatting with Lauren Cameron, who is the caregiver of her mother, who is living abroad in Jamaica, while Lauren is living in Boston. This conversation was truly close to my heart because Lauren is also a young millennial caregiver who decided to care for her mom at a very young age. I'm excited about this conversation because we touch on everything from navigating caring for your parent from a distance, making the choice to put your loved one in a facility or a community, but then also what is the toll and the impact on us as children of our parents who are living with some form of dementia. So I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I have. Without further ado, here's Lauren Cameron. Who are you and who do you care for?
Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Cameron. I am Jamaican, but I live in Boston for the past 17 years, and I care for my mother, who is also in Jamaica.
So you say you care for your mom who is also in Jamaica and you live in Boston. So
Yes.
take some time to describe what that is like. It sounds like you're a long distance caregiver for your mom. What has that journey been like for you?
Ooh, to be honest, the journey has been very emotional, filled with highs and lows. I think having some form of guilt in not being in Jamaica and being able to physically be there to provide the care and love that my mom gave me. And so I think this journey has enabled me to understand empathy and knowing that even though I'm not physically there, I can still show up for her in ways through asking for help, being able to be vulnerable enough to ask for help in my community of friends and family and loved ones close by, while also managing things that are I'm able to do online. So it's been very hard, and trying to give myself grace in knowing that even though I can't physically be there, I'm doing everything I can possibly do from here to ensure that she is cared for.
Walk me through. So she's living with dementia, correct?
Yes.
What was that diagnosis journey? Like, when did you know that something was wrong with your mom? And how did you go about those earlier years when you might not have necessarily been there with her?
That too was one of the hardest calls to receive. It was back in 2011, 2010, so junior and sophomore year of college, and getting a call from one of my mom's friends who had recently gone on a trip with her then and was noticing signs of her being a little bit forgetful on the cruise, not really remembering where her room was. And so I felt angry because I took her telling me this in like a condescending kind of a tone, like, your mom's not, remembering things, and we're concerned. But it kind of made me feel like I should have been there to notice these things, and I had to pause and to just take this all in to say, I can't take this as a personal like dig, but she's just as a friend letting me know, because I am far away, that they're noticing things and I should start to kind of get myself into understanding what is happening and how to then navigate preparing for the decline. But I think for me, I kind of had a cheat sheet in a way, in growing up before I left home to come to the States to pursue school. The rest of my high school years and college and so forth, where my mom grew up in a very large family. So when my grandmother was diagnosed with dementia, we had moments where each family member would keep my grandmother for some months at a time. And so she would hop around to various kids. And so when we had my grandmother, I kind of understood. I had a firsthand experience, like 7, 8, 9, of what dementia looks like. And it was scary. But at that time, I had my mom to lean on, and we had a aide to help as well. But in just navigating, I was like, oh, okay, this now makes sense. This is what I'm going to possibly be experiencing. So I think it was somewhat of a relief because I had already had experience with the disease, but also now it was kind of a realization that I don't have that help because I'm away at school. I'm an only child and I don't have any siblings or anyone really to lean on. So it was now, holy shit, sorry for cursing, but what am I going to do? How am I going to navigate all of this while finishing up school? And what exactly is this disease? So, age 22, 23, in those early years when you're supposed to be enjoying, your last years of college, I had to now flip into I need to learn quickly what this is so I'm able to adapt and help her ease into this transition.
Ooh, you just took me back. I could feel it, right? When you're just like, I'm not supposed to be thinking about this. And also, like, if I don't figure it out, what's going to happen to my mom? And so I have to, like, this pressure. Um,
It
so
was
with
as
that,
if being thrown into this responsibility when you're like, hold up, I needed a little break. I didn't think this soon.
yeah.
And, we take that for granted because we're like, oh, we're young, our parents are still young. And it was kind of just like head on. Now, we're letting you know that this is what's happening. So now, all the best.
So who's part of your village? You said you're an only child, right? So who is wrapping their arms around your mom from a distance, but also who is wrapping their arms around you while you're navigating all of this?
I would say, Jess, my mom has had so many lifelong friends that have shown up for her. And there are days that I cry because they really say your family is not always blood, and it's always, the friendships you've made and have kept over the years. And her village surprisingly includes her long life friends that she's have has, along with her workers that used to work for her, that still to this day just reach out when they are going to Jamaica, and they're like, your mom gave me the last shirt on her back. She put me through school. She, provided me with a car when I didn't need it. And so, like, I owe my life to her. And, that's just so comforting, especially in these days when, you leave a job and that's it. You don't really keep those connections with the people. So my mom's village consists of her friends, and me, of course. And then my village consists of my friends who, as an Aries, and being type A, it was very hard to really ask for help. And there was a couple years previously where I was just doing it all, trying to figure everything out on my own. And when my body started reacting to this weight that was placed on me, I had to really sit back and say, it's time to ask for help because I'm not on the ground. So it really took a lot to ask for help. And now I'm having the support of friends and a therapist. So I'm definitely in a better place.
Don't forget the therapist. Listen, they need to be a part of. the payroll, the village, all the things, okay? Because we can't expect to dump all of our stuff on our family and friends either, right? There needs to be someone to help guide. And if you have access to that, absolutely makes sense to leverage those resources. Something you mentioned was the power of lifelong friends and your mom treating her workers so well that they're still checking in on her. And it just speaks to the volume of like, your family is who you make it, right? And it's the folks that show up that you least expect are the ones that actually help get you through this. And so I just appreciate you for elevating that, because especially on this dementia journey, you need people who see you for all that you have been, not just someone who is living with a disease, right? Or like that is dementia, but like they're the person that they knew and the vibrant personality. And it sounds like they're treating her with such dignity and respect. And I'm glad that you have that to lean on as like a sense of comfort with you being so far away.
Yeah. And her being a Virgo, it isn't easy. And you know what they say about Virgos, you know. So I think for me, seeing my mom in a vulnerable state,
Mm.
um, back when I was told of this, the possibility of something going on. And so I had to find ways to approach my mom with the dignity of her being a strong, independent single mother, having to be the mother and the father all in one, but also knowing how much she's gone through to get to where she needed to be today. And so having to navigate that kind of a personality in understanding what she might have been experiencing. So finding ways to be like, hey, how are you today? You know, what did you do today? To kind of grasp what she was remembering or not remembering, and just keeping track and notes of our conversations to kind of be able to gauge how severe or how fast um, things were declining, for me to then know what actions I would need to take. So it's really shown me how to be more empathetic and patient. The patience took a long while, and I know there were times that I cried because of how reactive I was. And I think it came out of this anger of being thrown into this role at such a young age and feeling robbed in a way. And I had to find a way to not think of it as being robbed, but me now having this ability in this early stage to be able to give back to my mom and to care for her in the ways that she's cared for me. So,
It's been
so,
it's about what, 15 years now? You said 2010?
so like 2011. So yeah, around like 14, yeah, 14 years navigating. Yeah.
That's a long time. What is it that, how do you, how, I guess, I mean, obviously you're different now. You have your identity and who you are and how you're connecting to all this has evolved. I would say when you think about year 15, 14, where you are now and where you started, like what are you most proud of in terms of how you have navigated this? And what's the thing that you're still working on or that is still really difficult for you as you're navigating all of this?
I am proud of being able to manage my stress and reactiveness towards this disease and engaging with her, and not being triggered so easily, being like, mom, I already told you this, versus like, okay, yeah, so you know, I just reiterating what I had said before, and really being able to step back to understand that this is not something she's doing on purpose. So I think that growth in finding and understanding and learning what patience means, and not just for me but also being patient for her, that I would say has been something that has been important for me, and like the growth in where when I started to now. And then I think, what was the other question again?
What's something that you're still working on, struggling with? Like, what's still difficult for you, even 15 years in?
I would say just trying to understand. Ooh, sorry. Ooh. That I didn't understand that you could grieve someone who's still alive,
Mm.
and seeing someone who was so strong growing up and being like your super mom, being in a like a vulnerable state right now where I am the mom and I am the parent. And so, yeah, just still navigating that. I think it hits me from time to time that, 14 years of grieving and seeing my mom like decline, but also when you see like her spark, right? Because she's still able bodied, she's still walking, she's still sassy. But there are times when you remember, like, okay, she still has this disease. And there are some times when you're like, oh my God, my mom. Like, she has everything in order and she's just on, quick and witty and herself. And so I think that's been the hardest parts because I'm like, does she really have dementia? Or, so it tricks and plays on your heartstrings.
Ooh, the anticipatory grief, right? The grieving
Yeah.
of who your person was, but also grieving the relationship you had with them. And also just like grieving what you thought this would look like for you even
Yeah.
as an adult, right? And grief is not a one-time thing. It ebbs and flows and hits you out of nowhere often. And how do you process your grief, or how do you deal with it when it hits you?
That's still something I'm learning in this journey. I think, going for walks, just losing myself in music because music brings me joy, or just going out for dancing to dance and just be. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be with a friend, just getting lost in time and in the moment.
It's that moving your body moves the
Yeah.
grief too, right? That's so real. So, so
and
real.
I and that connects me to my mom as well because she was a dancer and she loved events and parties. And so when I'm in those spaces, I think of her, having her, a little glass of wine and just enjoying herself, being the queen that she is.
Oh, I love that. If you could start over, what would you do differently as a caregiver?
If I could start over, honestly, I think it would be to somehow teleport myself back to Jamaica to have those physical in-person moments with her. Um, because I think moving abroad at such an early age, I felt like I missed out on those teen years with her. So there is some of that like guilt where I'm like, oh, I left home and I wasn't able to really truly get to know my mom in and appreciate her in those years versus coming home for the holidays and very seasonal or just short visits. So I think for me it would have been spending more in-person physical on-site time with her, but to make up for that, her and I speak multiple times for the day, and that was a sacrifice because it's not cheap calling Jamaica, but there you can't put a price on your parent and keeping that connection and familiarity with her. So I make that up by multiple calls for the day.
Which we know is probably an emotional roller coaster. If you could tell the person that you're caring for, if you could tell your mom one thing, what would it be?
is that I love her and I want the best for her, and that I know that she deserves to have the best care that I can provide for her. And why I say that is because in 2023, that was the year that I had to make a very hard decision, which was moving her from her home, because all the measures that I had put in place in terms of hiring caregivers to be on site and them not working out, this was almost a 2.5 year of me going home every 2, 3 weeks, because I would go and interview them and they'd say, yes, I understand who your mom is. I've given them a portfolio of her likes or dislikes and just overall personality. And so they're like, yes, we can manage this. And, not soon after coming back, things would not work out. So it also came to a point where I had to create a list of scenarios that once it got to this last one, that would be the deciding factor, because I did want to give her that dignity and in being in her own home, right? This is her home. She's loved. She's grown up in, I've grown up in, this is the only home that I know. And to know that she's worked so hard to pay it off and this is her safe space, I really tried to make it work, but it was coming at a cost of my peace of mind, my health, and just overall well-being, that we had hit that last, it's time to make that decision. And that really hurt because I know it would have been something that she wouldn't want, and robbing her of, of her home and having to put her somewhere in unfamiliar and starting over, and feeling that that also was unfair to her to now have to learn a new space and a place, and to be in a space where there are other people, where she was at home by herself with her one-on-one caregiver and having her peace. So it was knowing who my mom is, what she likes, and now having to decide to, rock the boat. But because I know that this would have been what was best for her to increase her life expectancy and quality. And so 2023 was that year I had to come home and make that transition, which was not easy. But I had friends who helped in making that as smooth as possible.
I remember that. How would you say she is now that she's no longer in her home and in a place where there's other people? Do you find that, yes, it was the right decision, but how is she doing and how are you doing with that?
Absolutely. It was the best decision. I'm I think it took a couple months to realize that it was the best decision because I was still riddled with guilt. And in that initial transition phase before I left, she called me and was like, how could you have done this? You hear stories of children just throwing their parents away. And I think that really hurt. And it took everything out of me because I was like, no, mommy, that's not the case. I'm doing this because I love you. I care about you. And I was like, if there's anything, and we were both crying, and I was like, mom, if there's anything that you can remember from this conversation, is that I did this because I love you and I want to see you thrive as best as you can while navigating this journey. It wasn't to throw you away, to take the house, or anything that you think otherwise. But this was me showing you that I love you, I care for you, and I'm doing the best I can um, to make sure that you can live like the queen you are not have to worry about the things in the house and, all that stuff. You can relax now and let someone else take over and, wait on you and, do the things they need. So I think she won't tell me, but she'll tell everyone else that she's happy that I had moved her and that she's able to be around friends and see people and interact with people on a daily basis. And so because I know that, and I know she just won't tell me for pride reasons, it's okay. And she is honestly just living her best life.
Love that for her and for you.
Yes, huge weight lifted, and and as we were talking earlier, just reclaiming my life in a way where I could be at peace and know that everything is well as can be. And should there be any need or anything, they will let me know. So I could kind of offload a little bit of that responsibility while, making sure that I am fueling and refilling my cup. So,
You have preached a whole word for a lot of family caregivers, especially like solo children as they're navigating like the choices and what does this mean for both their person and for them. And so I appreciate your vulnerability and sharing both how difficult it was, but also on the other side of it, what that has meant for both your mom and for you. And I think that we don't have that conversation enough, especially as we're figuring out like how to honor our people, right? And honor their wishes, all the while making sure we don't lose ourselves completely while caring for our folks. So I just, yeah, thank you for elevating that. My final question for you is truly just if you could just think about your journey, what if you could just wave a magic wand, what would support look like for you, the caregiver? Or like what did you need that you never got? Or what do you still need that you're still searching for as it relates to truly supporting you, the caregiver, and carrying all the burden of thinking through intentional care for your mom?
that was a loaded question. Um, I don't know. I think having some kind of a guidebook of how to navigate this disease, either as an only child or just in general. I think, there wasn't anything for me to go to a website or someone who could help to guide. So I think having some form of platform where it was easier to find people like me, and through social media I found you, but I think if there was more of a one stop shop place where we could go, because by the grace of God, when I found your Instagram, I wept that day because I was like, oh my God, there's someone else like me, an only child, navigating this journey. And so when I reached out to you, I was just like, please, like, what can I expect? So I would say having the tools readily accessible, but also tools that can work in different scenarios. So it's not just so rigid, right? Because as you say, not everyone is able to be with their loved one. I'm, in Boston, my mom's in Jamaica, but also, navigating the Jamaican system was not easy because there isn't government help. So, it's how can we navigate this system as private sector when, the country that maybe your loved one in doesn't have the aid in which you might need. So, learning about how I can maybe get other resources, from maybe the States to kind of help in navigating that. So it was, so for me, I felt like I've had to build my own tools and systems that make sense for me that might not make sense for others because of the situation that I'm in. So I would just say more resources and accessibility to caregivers, but caregivers that look like us and have the lived experience versus the clinical experience as well.
100%. Yep. Yep. It's amazing what just access to people who get it will do, right? Like just seeing yourself, and also like seeing that it's possible to navigate through it goes a long way. And that's such a simple thing that we need, but it hasn't, it's 2025 and like doesn't fully exist outside of social media, which I think is just so wild. So I'm with you. I'm with you. Okay, those are all my formal questions. Is there anything else that you want to share, say out loud, something that you want to make sure gets elevated for people to hear?
I guess just you're not alone. And I think it becomes such a lonely place where you get so consumed in the guilt, the grief, the anger, the resentment that you forget that there are others that are willing to help, and you just have to let them know that it's okay to help.
Mm,
Um, and that's what I've had to learn through these years, that it was okay to be vulnerable. There are people that might not be your people, but there are people that are willing to help that also, like I said, become close family and friends.
come on, preach, Lauren. Let them know. Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time and just
Thank
sharing so
you.
openly. I just appreciate how you brought your full self, even to talking about your mom, right? And the choices you've had to make. And so I just know that this is going to help and bless somebody who was also listening. So thank you so much, Lauren.
Thank
Um,
you, Jessica. I
yeah.
appreciate you as well, because honestly, without you, I didn't think there was hope. So I really do appreciate you as well for being so vulnerable and advocating for the rest of us and elevating and making a platform for us.